In the current context of European football, we observe a worrying increase in cases of racism and provocations both on and off the field. The mentioned case involving Vinicius Jr. brings to light the reality that, even in the 21st century, racist attitudes continue to haunt the sport. The outrage over the treatment of the Brazilian player is more than justified. When he steps onto the field, he should be recognized for his talent and skill, not targeted by hate attacks. But before we continue, please like and subscribe to the channel to help us reach 1,000 subscribers. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. First, let's aim for the goal of 500 likes for this video. Now that you've subscribed, let's get to the news. Throughout the past season, Vinicius Jr. has suffered various forms of racial abuse in different stadiums in Spain. These incidents, far from being isolated, are part of a systemic problem that still permeates world football. Despite FIFA and UEFA's efforts to eradicate racism from stadiums, these episodes continue to occur at an alarming frequency. In the match between Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid, the player was once again the victim of racist insults, and the international press, particularly the French media, highlighted this while criticizing other aspects of the match. In addition to racism, the match was interrupted by an unfortunate incident involving Thibaut Courtois, Real Madrid's goalkeeper. Projectiles were thrown from the stands, causing a 15-minute pause. This type of violent behavior, common in high-rivalry matches, raises questions about safety in stadiums and the responsibility of clubs to ensure a safe environment for both players and fans. Atletico Madrid, one of Spain's biggest clubs, was criticized not only for the lack of control over their fans but also for the stance of their coach, Diego Simeone, who, according to some, did not take adequate measures to calm the situation. Simeone, known for his provocative and energetic style on the sidelines, was accused of exacerbating the tension with his attitudes. The criticism that he deserves to be sanctioned in almost every game reflects the perception that he frequently crosses the line of sportsmanship, provoking both opponents and referees. The press, particularly the French media, addressed these incidents in a controversial manner. While some outlets condemned the fans who insulted Vinicius, others preferred to focus on the behavior of the player himself and Simeone, diverting attention from the larger problem. This stance generated outrage among those who believe that the issue of racism in football should be the primary focus, not the rivalries or provocations between players. The fact that a Brazilian fan who tried to defend Vinicius was expelled from the stadium only increased the sense of injustice. For many, this was yet another demonstration of how the system seems more inclined to protect the aggressors than the victims. The debate over what should be done about these situations is urgent. Many believe that stricter sanctions are needed, both for the clubs and the fans involved, to deter racist and violent behavior. Atletico Madrid coach Diego Simeone did not escape criticism either. Known for his passionate style and for often inciting both his players and fans, Simeone was labeled a provocateur. Some believe he incites unsportsmanlike attitudes in both his players and the crowd. In the specific case of Vinicius Jr., some critics believe Simeone's stance contributed to the tense and hostile atmosphere in the stadium. His statements after the match, in which he criticized Vinicius' behavior, were seen by some as an attempt to divert attention from the racist attitudes of Atletico fans. Regardless of Simeone's intentions, his behavior on the sidelines is frequently controversial, and many believe he should be held more accountable for inciting negative behaviors. The relationship between coaches, players, and fans is complex, and it is undeniable that the attitudes of leaders on the field directly influence the behavior of the stands. The 15-minute interruption of the match due to projectiles thrown at Courtois symbolizes a sad reality in modern football. Instead of celebrating the talent and skill of the players on the field, we often find ourselves discussing episodes of violence and racism. The question remains, how do we change this reality? Stricter penalties for offenders? Greater control over fans? The truth is that there is no simple solution. Racism is a deep-seated problem, rooted in various societies, and football, as a reflection of society, ends up being a stage for the manifestation of these deplorable attitudes. However, this does not mean we should accept it as inevitable. The entities that govern football have the power to implement significant changes, whether through educational campaigns or exemplary sanctions. One of the most regrettable aspects of the incident was the fact that, after so many years of anti-racist campaigns, there still seems to be a significant gap between words and actions. European football, especially in leagues like La Liga, continues to face enormous challenges in dealing with racism in the stands. And as long as authorities continue to treat these incidents with lenient measures, the problem will persist. Players like Vinicius Jr., who are frequent targets, need more support, both from their teams and from the organizing entities. The expulsion of a Brazilian fan who tried to defend himself from racist insults demonstrates an inversion of priorities that must be urgently corrected. It is essential that victims are protected and aggressors are punished. Finally, the episode involving Vinicius Jr. and Thibaut Courtois serves as a grim reminder that football, despite being a sport loved by millions of people around the world, still faces serious challenges related to fan behavior. The passion that football inspires is undoubtedly one of its greatest strengths, but when that passion turns into hatred, especially based on race, everyone loses. Spanish and global football authorities must take stronger measures to ensure that the sport is a safe and inclusive space for everyone. This includes not only sanctioning the fans involved but also a more critical analysis of how influential figures, such as coaches and players, can contribute to creating a more positive and respectful atmosphere in stadiums. The incident involving Vinicius Jr. and masked fans is another example of the recurring problems of racism and hatred that persist in football. The proposal by some fans to wear masks as a form of protest against what they see as manipulation of their club's image is a complex issue. They argue that, before each derby, false information circulates to damage the team's image. However, this initiative was quickly hijacked by fans with other intentions, turning what could have been a peaceful protest into a platform to spread messages of hatred and racist insults against Vinicius. From the moment the hashtag was used to cover up these acts of racism, the situation took on a new gravity, reflecting a problem that goes beyond football and is rooted in social and cultural issues. It is essential to differentiate the traditional booing in stadiums, something common in big derbies, from the racist insults that have been frequently directed at Vinicius Jr. Booing a player is part of the sports spectacle, but when it evolves into racist attacks, a line is crossed. The fact that this has happened again, during a match between Atletico de Madrid and Real Madrid, raises questions about the effectiveness of the measures that football authorities have been taking. Although racism in sport is not new, it is unacceptable that we continue to witness such acts, especially in a prestigious league like the Spanish one. Moreover, Atletico de Madrid's image has been severely impacted by these events, and the club risks being associated with this type of behavior. While we do not know all the details of the racist incidents in this particular match, we can already foresee that this will have serious consequences for the club and Spanish football in general. This type of attitude not only affects the club's image, but also harms the involved player. This is not the first time Vinicius Jr. has gone through this in Spain, and many wonder why he seems to be a recurring target of racist insults. Some suggest that there is a personal persecution against the player, something that goes beyond traditional sports rivalries. Vinicius is a standout player with a rising career, but for some reason, he seems to be treated differently compared to other athletes. However, this should not be used as an excuse to minimize the attacks he suffers. Racism is unacceptable in any situation, regardless of who the victim is or what has happened on the field. On the other hand, some critics point out that Vinicius Jr. has a provocative stance on the field. He frequently insults players and referees, something that, according to some, makes him deserving of sanctions in practically every match he plays. There is a perception that the player creates an atmosphere of tension and hostility around him, which ultimately exacerbates fan reactions. However, that justification cannot be used to cover up racism. Vinicius's behavior on the field must be analyzed separately from the racist insults he receives. Punishing a player for provoking is one thing. Accepting that he is the target of racism is something entirely different. Authorities need to find a balance to address both issues fairly. The Spanish government, as well as La Liga, were compelled to speak out about recent events due to the seriousness of the incidents. Authorities are calling for the immediate arrest of those responsible for the racist attacks against Vinicius, an action that demonstrates the seriousness with which the problem is being addressed. However, this response raises an important question. Why did the problem go this far before significant measures were taken? Racism in football is not new, and it seems that only now, after years of recurring incidents, are authorities beginning to react with the necessary firmness. Vinicius's case could be a turning point, but what really matters is what will be done from now on. Will the proposed measures be enough to prevent similar episodes from occurring again? Another topic that has been debated is whether Vinicius Jr. will continue at Real Madrid after these events. The club's image is at stake, and Real Madrid is an institution that highly values its reputation. Although the club has shown its support for the player so far, the question remains, how long will this continue? It is possible that Real will decide that the issues surrounding Vinicius, both on and off the field, are not worth the risk to its image. If that happens, the player might seek new horizons in an attempt to escape the toxic atmosphere that seems to have formed around him in Spain. Regardless of what the future holds for Vinicius, it is clear that he is at the center of a controversy that goes beyond football. Atletico de Madrid's coach, Diego Simeone, also spoke out about the events, offering an interesting perspective on how everyone's actions, including those of football protagonists, can influence crowd behavior. According to Simeone, fans' reactions are often responses to what happens on the field. He does not justify violent or racist behavior but suggests that players and coaches also have an important role in moderating the atmosphere. For him, it is essential that everyone, players, coaches, and fans, be responsible for their actions. When there are provocations on the field, this can incite negative reactions from the stands. Simeone argues that both those who provoke and those who react inappropriately should be punished, which he believes would help balance the situation and prevent future conflicts. For example, the incident in which Courtois was hit by a lighter during a match is mentioned by Simeone as an example of how things can get out of control. He argues that when players provoke and nothing happens, it creates an environment where fans feel entitled to react excessively. Simeone's message is clear: everyone has a responsibility for what happens on and off the field. He warns that if we are not careful, we can go from being victims to victimizers, creating a cycle of violence and hatred that is detrimental to football as a whole. In summary, the incident involving Vinicius Jr. is another sad chapter in the long history of racism in football. Although authorities have begun to act, there is still much work to be done to eradicate this type of behavior. On-field provocations, violence in the stands, and racism are interconnected problems that need to be addressed together.